Hey, welcome. In this video, I want to share with you some dilemmas that I see VPs of sales, CEOs, founders have around revenue, around building a business, growing a business, acquiring new customers, and there's all sorts of choices you have. You know, when you want to grow, which you wouldn't probably be watching this if you didn't want to grow in some respect, or whether you want to scale, like go from 1x to 100x, there are decisions that you have. There are dilemmas that those decisions cause you to be in. And I want to kind of shine the light on a few of these today. And some of these might be relevant to you. Some of these might be things you're struggling with right now. Some, I might shine the light kind of behind the crevasse or crevice, however you pronounce that, to something you haven't thought about before. First off, let me introduce myself. My name is Bill Caskey. I run a sales coaching business out of Indianapolis, Indiana, and have for over 30 years. I work primarily in the business-to-business space. As near as we can tell, we've added about $750 million of top-line revenue to companies. I always say when I quote that number, wasn't all on me. This was a conjoined effort with all of our clients, but we've had some pretty amazing results. And I think the reason we've had some good results is because we are willing to shine the light on some choices you have. You know, a lot of times we live our business life with our heads in the sand, and we just keep doing and doing and grinding and grinding. And if it worked yesterday, why won't it work today? And I think a lot of people, you may be included, are saying, you know what worked yesterday doesn't work today or doesn't work as well today. And what does the future hold? What kinds of futures can we depend upon if we don't change what we're doing today in the present? So I've listed out these 7 dilemmas that I think every leader has in a company when it comes to revenue. These are more about revenue and customer acquisition. So let's get into these. And again, the purpose here is not to solve all 7 of these. And again, there's probably more than 7. But it's to shine the light on them so that you can say, okay, well, I was struggling with this. Now I know what the choice is. And I think it's going to help you make some decisions of how to grow your business over the next few years. Ready? Let's go. Dilemma number 1 is the best and brightest dilemma. And this dilemma comes when you have people on your team who are already good. They may be at the top of their game or at the top of their head of the class. Maybe they're the best in your organization. Maybe they're the best in the industry. And you have these people who probably also have upside potential. No one is perfect. We all have upside potential. And the challenge, the dilemma is that you have people who are already doing well who could be doing a lot better if they could use some of the technology and skills that maybe weren't available to them 10 years ago that are now. And I see this a lot, and it's always that dilemma of, do I train my best and brightest because I don't want to lose them? Or do I spend my money training and coaching the kind of the middle 60, the at-leasters? I certainly don't want to train the bottom 20 or 30 because they're probably going to be gone anyway. And I don't want to insult you here, but the fact is that there's such a thing as turnover. People have, 5.7 careers by the time they hit 35 years old. That's a lot of turnover, a lot of churn. It's going to happen. Some people just aren't a fit. We can't ignore it, or we can ignore sometimes that to our detriment. But it's that middle 60 or upper echelon. How do you train them? Do you train them? And the worst thing that can happen is those people leave. Not because there was a better opportunity, but because they got tired and because the culture didn't support them. So don't forget about your best and brightest. I know it's easy to say, leave those people alone. They don't need anything. I just had this happen last year. A company called me in and they wanted me to work with their whole team. And then finally the CEO said, you know what, I don't want him working with these 3 people who are our best. And guess what? They didn't get access. They didn't get a chance. I still feel calls to this day from 2 of those people who say, I still don't understand why I'm in this training. So if you're a CEO, don't ignore your best and brightest. Dilemma number 2 that's on the minds of a lot of people today is labor versus procedure. Do I throw more labor at the problem? And let's say the problem is not generating enough clients. Let's say that we are on a growth track, but we're not meeting our numbers, we're not meeting our quota. The fact is that in any given quota, 60% of the people don't hit it, 60% don't hit it. So you might have a quota problem. What do you throw at that? Do you throw process or do you throw labor? Most people throw labor. Most people say, well, our sales are $30 million, we want to get to 60, so we need to double our sales team in the next 2 years. And then you go out and you find people and they don't work out, and you find people to replace them, and the people that replace them don't work out, and then you're finding people to replace the people that replace them and they don't work out. It is a short labor pool. It's not plentiful with awesome talent. Is there good talent out there? Of course there is. But the dilemma is, do I throw labor at it or do I throw a process at it? Our recommendation is you throw process at it. If you've got 10 people on your team and they're all doing pretty well, they're good people, why not throw process at it? Why not get them better at lead generation, get them better at lead conversion, get them better at negotiating, get them better at operating a territory and the entrepreneurial spirit, get them better at creating solutions, get them better at finding problems, get them better at those things. You can 2x to 3x your business almost overnight, not by throwing more labor at this dilemma, but by throwing more process at the dilemma. The third dilemma that I see companies struggle with is what I'll call the competitive head fake dilemma. And that's where we look at competitors and try to mirror them. And we look and say, well, they're doing that really well. Maybe we should try that. Hey, they're trying Facebook ads. Maybe we should do that. Hey, they're not posting on LinkedIn, so why should we post on LinkedIn? I hear that a lot. We're constantly kind of examining the terrain, looking at what our competitors do, and that is the worst thing you can do. The dilemma is, why am I always looking at competitors? Why am I not looking at myself and saying, who am I? What do I want? What do I stand for? What are my values? If you're not a creative design person, you're a CEO leading a team and you could care less about design, don't mimic somebody who loves design because it's not going to come across right. It's going to be fake and phony. So you've got to decide how much of you, as a VP of sales too, do you want to put on display out to your people? Or do you just want to do the same thing everybody else is doing? That is a race to the bottom. Don't do that. I know it's an easy default mechanism. Well, let's just do what everybody else, what everybody else is doing, 12-week programs, so let's do 12-week programs. Everybody else is selling this product at a discount, so let's sell it at a discount. No, don't do that. That doesn't represent your true values, and yet we default into that just competitive head fake. They're always out there they're not trying to fake us out, by the way. It's not an intentional head fake. It's that we go for the fake because we're not them. The fourth dilemma people have is the commodity dilemma. It's the commodity dungeon. It's the dungeon that you and your people drop into because you cannot, for the life of you, distinguish in an economic way your value from your competitor. So to the customer, you all look alike. You say the same thing. You represent the same thing. Your slides might be a little bit better. Their logo might be a little bit better. But if you're not able to declare and proclaim and explain your uniqueness, you will always get sucked into the commodity dungeon. The commodity dungeon is an easy place to default into because the natural default gravity will take us down there. So you, as an owner, as a leader, have to make a conscious decision that we are staying out of the commodity dungeon. We are not going to beat price, meet price. We're not going to go down that path, which you'll say to me, but Bill, sometimes we just have to discount. No, you don't. You do not have to discount. If you're doing things upstream really well, you're good at proclaiming your value, you understand what your value is, which I bet right now 70% of the salespeople who represent products in business to business do not fully comprehend and understand the value they bring. Well, how is a person who doesn't understand the value going to represent and communicate that value so that people will take a little bit more out of their wallet to pay for it? Ain't gonna happen. It's just not. You'll argue with me, I know, but it's not going to happen. So you've got to come to the conclusion that I'm going to get out of that commodity dungeon by solving the dilemma, solving the problem, which is how do we communicate our value in a better way? Number 5 dilemma, this is one you're not going to want to hear about, you're not even going to want to talk about. It's the self-image dilemma. It's the idea that right now you have people on your team who you're investing in maybe, or you're wanting them to grow their business. You're wanting to take a $100,000 a year person and get them to $300,000 or $1 million territory, get it to $2 million. But it's a self-image problem. If your people do not image themselves doing the thing that you want them to do, they're not going to go to the place you want them to go. Here's one example. I've got a client who's trying to get their people to build their personal brands on LinkedIn. They're an exquisitely smart, brilliant group of people, but they're afraid, they're scared to death of posting anything on LinkedIn. Why? Self-image. It's a self-image issue. They don't see themselves as a person whose brand matters. And the owner is doing all those things, but he cannot get his people to do them. It's because of the self-image dilemma. So you as a founder, CEO have a choice. Do you work on their self-image, or do you just acquiesce and say, well, you know what, they're just not going to get it. I guess I got to go hire more people. And of course not. You have to work on self-image. There is a way to do that. You may or may not be schooled in it. Your VP of sales may not know how to do that. There is a way to do that. If you work on the self-image issue and get their self-image to a $300,000 a year, $500,000, what do you think is going to happen to the results? Of course, they're going to follow it. So you've got to understand there is a dilemma. It's caused by self-image, and you've got the choice. Do I really pay attention to that, or do I ignore it? If you ignore it, you do so at your own peril. The number 6 dilemma companies face is the tremendously uncreatively titled the unleveraged asset dilemma. Here's what I will tell you. You are sitting on a gold mine of assets. Your people are assets, and you have assets inside your company. Assets like your email list, your company story. I'm not talking about PowerPoints necessarily, although if you have really good branding, you have really good digital assets, you have really good videos, you have really good customers who love you and who've testified to the love they have for you, and they've shot videos. Those are all assets. You're not using them. You're not using them. Or if you are, you're using 10% of them, and you're not leveraging them. And what about your people? Think about how much knowledge they have about the business and about how to find problems, how to solve problems, how to take your prospects from where they are to where they want to be. You don't think that's an asset? Think of all the stories you have. And yet I bet if you were to ask your people to list all their personal assets, they would not even have that on the list. So you as an owner have to decide, am I willing to look at the unleveraged or underleveraged assets that our company has? You want to take your business from where it is to 2x, 5x, 10x, use your assets better. They're there. You don't have to acquire any more. They're all right there. So it's a dilemma, because if you don't know they exist, you will never find them. You'll never leverage them. I always say that if you want to help somebody get to their truest potential, and it could be money or it could be something else, but from where they are to where they could be potentially, all you have to do is leverage the assets of that person. And most people don't do it. Dilemma number 7 is, we'll call it the orthodoxy dilemma. And that dilemma is, I've always done things in a certain way for so long. It's just how I do things. It's my orthodox approach. It's my traditional approach. And you can't get out of it. It sucks you in. And cognitive dissonance then starts to come into play. When you see another way to do things, you will immediately shut that down because it doesn't match your orthodoxy. I have seen so many customers struggle because they cannot get out of their old thinking. You can call it comfort zone, you can call it, counterintuitive, ways to jumpstart your business, reinvent yourself, but it really gets back to, you've been sucked in by the orthodoxy of how you've always done things. And when a guy like me or somebody like me comes along and starts talking about these things, you shut it down because it's too dangerous. It's too vulnerable. It sounds like it requires too much work, although it never does. But we jump to the conclusion, well, that's too much. Leveraging assets, oh, come on, Bill, that's too much work. No, it's not. It's not a lot of work. But you got to know what you're doing, or it is a lot of work. But don't get sucked into the orthodoxy. The orthodoxy dilemma is that we're doing things the same way we've always done them. There's a new world. Guess what? Startups in your world will do things very differently than the way you're doing things. If you're not speaking to people digitally, on camera, like this, or on audio, if you don't have a marketing footprint that is wide, and you distribute your message, somebody else is. Somebody else is. You're probably better than them at delivering it, but you're not doing it because you have been sucked into the orthodoxy. So I hope these 7 dilemmas opened your eyes a little bit. Again, I promised at the very beginning, this was not a video to solve all of these, But these are the 7, and there's more, that people wrestle with. And if you're going to grow, you have to sort these out. Because if you don't even acknowledge you have a choice in some of these, like most people won't even acknowledge they have a choice. But if you'll do that, it will start to inspire you to go take action, to start to solve some of these dilemmas and go down the right path. Because in all of these, there's a right path and a wrong path. And I know we don't like to say right and wrong, but in a world that's changing dramatically, you've got to find the right path for you. If I can help in any way, I'm happy to do so. I think we'll put a link to my calendar below. If you just want to get on our email list, we'll put that below as well. If you don't want to talk to me, if you're scared to death of talking to me, that's fine. But I'm pretty harmless, and if you want to get on a call, we can talk about you or your team. Happy to do that. And hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope it's awakened you to hopefully it's inspired you and awakened you to some of the choices that you need to make. I'll see you next time. Bye.